there is a chance that a major counteroffensive with a beefed up set of Ukrainian forces, perhaps with F-16s available by that stage, might have the chance of launching a new counteroffensive in 2025. But, this is turning out now to be a long war.
And let's get the news now to distinguished former commanders. Welcome to Lord Dannatt, General Lord Dannatt, former head of the British Army. Hello to you, Richard.
John, good evening. Good to be with you again.
Welcome to have you back, and also welcome to Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO commander and Director General at the Defence Ministry. Hello to you, Chris.
Good evening.
Hi. Can I come to you first, Lord Dannatt? Now, what do you make of where we are with the war so far? Talk about a Russian push towards Kharkiv going on. I've seen interpretations that this is more about creating a buffer zone than a big push to seize massive territory. How do you weigh it up?
Well, I think it's all of those things, but I think it's mostly a reflection of, well, what Anthony Blinken was talking about. He talked about a delay. I think it's a catastrophic delay that the holdup in the US Congress has resulted in. 6 months ago, that $60-odd billion package could have been available. And frankly, if it had been, and the Ukrainians had been able to have the artillery ammunition, the air defense missiles, the long-range cruise missiles, and so on that they have needed, then a lot of Ukrainian soldiers would not have died. So this internal squabble that's gone on for 6 months in the US, I think it's actually verging on the pretty disgraceful. But well done, Blinken, for at least turning up and saying that America will stand with Ukraine. But as far as what's going on the battlefield today, yes, the Russians are making the most of the opportunity that they've got. Yes, they're pushing from the border in the Kharkiv area. They'll be pushing elsewhere. They want to exploit the opportunity that the paucity of ammunition has provided them and the difficulties that it's put the Ukrainians in. So the next few weeks and months until that flow of supplies comes through is going to be critical.
Now, what about the war aims now? I was listening to one of your fellow former army generals, General Sheriff, saying that the need now, the mission now should be to defeat Russia in Ukraine, to seize back all of that Ukrainian territory. Is that possible, do you think, Lord Dannatt?
Well, Richard Sheriff has been saying that for quite some time, and he thinks that NATO should be much more offensive-minded as far as the war in Ukraine is concerned, and I can understand where he's coming from. I think, John, if we reflect on the conversations that you and I were having a year ago, we were saying that when the Western main battle tanks, armored personnel carriers, self-propelled artillery, insufficient numbers comes forward, then the Ukrainians have got an opportunity of launching a counteroffensive, which might give the possibility of pushing the Russians back out of Ukraine. Well, that hasn't happened, and we know why it hasn't happened. And frankly, I can't see the prospect of that happening this year. Now, if the West, and particularly Americans, and goodness gracious me, it could be Americans under Trump by the end of the year, are still willing to stand foursquare with the Ukrainians, then there is a chance that a major counteroffensive with a beefed up set of Ukrainian forces, perhaps with F-16s available by that stage, might have the chance of launching a new counteroffensive in 2025. But, this is turning out now to be a long war. And Grant Shapps is right to say that it's not up to us to pressure the Ukrainians to think about a negotiated settlement. But I wouldn't mind betting that that's what's going through Putin's mind at the present moment. He probably has come to accept that he can't defeat Ukraine completely. He knows that the West is standing foursquare with Ukraine. So he may be trying to improve his position so that his bargaining position may be better. But will Zelensky ever negotiate? I don't think he will.
All right, General Lord Dannatt, thank you. Let's turn now to you, if I can, Admiral Chris Parry, and talk about Seapower, because the Defence Secretary has announced 6 new warships, 3 are being built, 3, as it were, will be planned, and he says they will be built as well. Will that sort of increase in Seapower add up to a significant increase in our capabilities at sea, Chris?
No. We're simply playing catch up for all the capability that we've lost since 2010. I think we're seeing the number of hulls being reduced. I think the amount of capability restores some of what we had before, and it'll go some way also to supporting the carrier groups that have been envisaged. But what I'm concerned about is that a lot of these platforms are designed to fight yesterday's wars. And unless they have the systems and weapons and sensors that fit them for the next 20 years, they're going to be obsolete before they come into service.
Yeah, well, they do seem to my sort of layman's mind to have some weaponry, which is all about the future. Laser guns, according to the Defence Secretary. I had no idea such things existed. Are we talking about weapons, Chris, which are recognisable from sci-fi fiction down the years?
Well, John, I wrote a book in 2014 that said that directed energy would be the next thing. I also said that it would be the counter to drones. So I'm afraid to say they've been there for quite some time. Again, we're playing catch up. The Americans already have laser weapons at sea. They're proven, and you'll see them proliferating. I mean, the key thing about them is if you look at the targets being put down in the Red Sea, the drones from the Houthis and their missiles, it's taken, a missile, typically a standard missile from an American warship, a cost of over £1 million each, to take out a drone that costs about 40,000. So the cost ratios are prohibitive. What directed energy will give us is taking those drones and those missiles out of the sky for less than $15 a shot.
Well,
and that really is the critical issue. But directed energy, yep, they're part of the future. But we've got to talk about all sorts of other technologies as well. Surface ships are going to be uniquely vulnerable in the next 10 to 15 years. You consider that in 5 years, for example, nothing on the surface of this planet won't be detectable, either from space, from its infrared signature, or other. Just think of the data exhaust that we put out from all our electronic devices.
yeah.
So given the fact that everything is going to be detectable, that means everything's going to be targetable. And another thing you will have heard about, John, is hypersonic missiles that go up to 7 times the speed of sound. That's going to change the face of warfare in future. So what I'm hoping to see is these ships are what we would call modular, so that you essentially they're sort of empty hulls in many ways that you fit modular capabilities to,
Yes.
like containerized systems, so that you can do technology insertion at the speed of technology development. And as Lord Dannatt will know, this is not just about what's happening at sea. You don't want a huge tank formation in the middle of nowhere about to be targeted, as we've seen in Ukraine. So we've got to couple that with deceptive technologies, things that actually displace ships
Yes.
on people's sensor devices and things like that, and cloaking devices as well.
Okay.